Fantastic. What is it? Seven there? You said we're 7 hours
It's
ahead?
7. It's 7 p.m.
Okay, let's see. If you don't mind, let me get like countdown just 10, 9, 8, just so I can get your audio levels, please.
Awesome.
Go for it. Just give me a quick countdown so I can.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5,
Perfect.
4.
Perfect. Good to go.
Yay.
All right. Well, I guess I could talk to you on the show and talk to you about it, how Christmas went and everything, how everything is going. All right, here we go. Oh, snaps. It's so loud all of a sudden. All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, off to the races. It's me speaking to you, Jeffrey Wilson, coming to you live and direct from the Gateway to the West, St. Louis, Missouri. Before we get started, I hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas. Just wanted to knock out a couple of sponsors, ladies and gentlemen. ChemicalFreeBody.com/it's me. Some of the most incredible supplements I've been able to take. Green 85, some of the most powerful micronutrients, vitamins, supplements. He's got gut cleanse. Not many people know that you produce more serotonin in your gut than you do in your brain. And of course, serotonin is that mood stabilizing chemical that we all love so much. So you get your gut cleanse. Guys like me, take a little Alpha Dude. He's got plenty of stuff over there to check out, ladies and gentlemen. ChemicalFreeBody.com/it's me, promo code it's me for your discount. And just like any time, especially right now, health is wealth, ladies and gentlemen. So go check out blackoxygenorganics.com/Jeffrey Wilson, JFFERY. I can't even begin to tell you how incredible this stuff is. 45% more oxygen on a cellular level. I mean, you just can't beat that with a bat. 60 times its carrying capacity to just flush our body of toxins. We don't even know when we're born. We have like almost 200 plus toxic chemicals and just all kind of metals in our body, in our umbilical cord. So we're almost born toxic. So definitely chemicalfreebody.com is definitely helpful to help you flush. Amazing for your gut, amazing for your immune system, anti-inflammatory, antiviral. Go check it out. blackoxygenorganics.com/Jeffrey Wilson. And with that out of the way, she's been so patient. She's amazing. We had a windstorm and all kind of stuff knocked my internet off last week, but she's been so patient to reschedule with me here, coming live and direct from Italiano. Buonasera, Miss Tara Patrick. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great. How are you doing?
Every day above ground's a good day. I cannot even begin to complain. Just coming off the holidays and all that good stuff. How is it for you over there? You are in Italy right now. How long have you been there, and how was your holidays?
So I'm in northern Italy. I'm actually like at the base of the Alps, pretty far north, bordering Switzerland. And I love it here. I moved to Italy 6 years ago. I've been here 6 years now. I absolutely love it. And we had a great holiday, super quiet. I think probably just like everyone. We are not in a super hard lockdown, but still they're not really encouraging you to go out and visit people. And so we just stayed home. It was quiet. It was nice. I think it kind of forces everybody to actually FaceTime each other or talk to each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Hopefully not air too much drama or grievances, because I know that comes out around the holidays too.
Yes,
but
without a doubt. We had a big Zoom family meeting as well. And I would think some families would almost prefer that short 25 minutes, 30 minutes to a whole weekend where it's like people start getting hammered and people start talking shit about stuff that happened 10, 20 years ago or whatever.
But I remember 10
Yeah. You still owe me $20, fool. When I was going to ask
you didn't bring dessert for the last 5 years, so you don't get to eat. Oh, yeah.
You brought green bean casserole instead. But I mean, obviously, this is not necessarily the political show. This is way more lighthearted. But I did want to ask you how things are going over there. Obviously, this is a global situation, and I guess you kind of answered it. But kind of overall, is that kind of the thing? You guys aren't necessarily hard lockdown, but there is kind of a please stay home if you don't have to go out kind of thing.
Well, we were. I mean, Italy was the first country that we experienced a true hard lockdown back in March. And I will say, it's funny. I mean, I'm happy to go in and out of politics or have political Tourette's, if you want to call it. But I mean, I left the US 6 years ago. So I was actually going back and forth because even though I've retired mostly from the adult industry, it's crazy. It's bananas. It's been like 14 years since I've been in front of a camera. Time just seems to go like that, which can be a good or bad thing in entertainment. I'm not sure.
Sure.
But I wanted to come to Italy because I've always loved this country. I really didn't need to be in the US anymore per se because I wasn't actively working in the industry. And I said I've always wanted to live in Europe. There's such a huge cultural difference, and I wanted to raise my daughter over here. I just kind of wanted a different quality of life. And so I still have strong ties. Obviously, my family's in California. I also have family in Washington and in Nevada. So I do get back about 2, 3 times a year. And I
Cool.
think one of the hugest differences, of course, in how globally, we've handled this COVID situation was that Italy right away, hard lockdown.
Yeah.
We stayed home for 3 months. Stayed home. I mean, I was still talking to friends back home and they were like, "What? No, I'm out. We went to the beach. We're at parties." I'm like,
It's
"We're
coming.
home."
Yeah. Yeah, and I do remember, I mean, God, like I said, time flies. I do remember Italy, was definitely one of the most hardest hit, obviously in the more elderly community. But yeah, it's been crazy, man. It's absolutely been crazy. Again, we don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I didn't mean to, but I was going to say it was, I found it to be kind of nice. I felt safe. I will say after it was from March, I would say mid-March till let's say mid-May. After that, we've been fine. I mean, we were able to, I think, contain it to a certain level. We were able to have a nice holiday in the summer. I mean, there's been such a huge difference in, I think, how our quality of life has sort of been day to day. And in a
Yeah.
way, we were able to still go shopping. We were able to still go out and do things. But I just feel like my daughter and I have, and my husband and I, we enjoyed the time together. It was nice. It wasn't the most awful thing. I know everyone's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
running with this whole throw 2020 in the trash, but I
I
didn't
mean,
really
like
think
anything else,
that.
it is what you make it. But I mean, it just has been super tough, domestic violence, kids' visits to the ER, just overdoses and alcohol. I mean, it's really, really taken a lot of a toll on people and even kids having to lock down. But like I said, it's anything, it's what we make it. And everyone uses this term, the great reset, which I do believe, again, not going into deep and all that. I thought of, if you don't look at this opportunity these last several months to reset kind of yourself and your own spiritual reset, like you said, less is more. You wind up either hating your loved ones and your siblings, or you wind up reconnecting with them in a more deeper way. So again, like anything, it's what we make it. But for me, I've done my best. It's especially kind of doing the other shows and how bad it is and how kind of deep down that rabbit hole I have to go. I started realizing I have to start balancing this out, because
Yeah.
you can't read and research the darkness, and you got to stay in the light, or at least attempt to. So again, it's what we make it. Um, So, Tara Patrick, how does take me down this rabbit hole, this storyline, if you will? And I don't know if this is your married name, but how does Linda Hopkins turn into Tara, the incredible Tara Patrick? Give me that evolution, if you will.
So, well, my memoir came out in 2009. It's called Sinner Takes All. And it actually, it's so funny, verbatim. It says, "How does this shy, awkward bookworm named Linda Hopkins become Tara Patrick?" And it's funny because you just said something so pivotal. And one reason why I love following you on Twitter is because you're one of the few people that really have like a positive mental mindset about
Try to,
things.
yeah.
I always say, I mean, I probably didn't originate this, but if you go on social media, sometimes it's just like a toilet. You never know what you're going to find in there. It could just be super easy, flush, bye bye, everyone's happy, or it could just be super toxic. And so
Yes.
I've really tried to just really only get on there to talk, either engage positively with people. I try not to read too much news, but like you said, when you have a career in entertainment, whether it's from the adult side, mainstream side, it's like you kind of keep yourself alive through social media. And so when I started back in NAM, 1999, which is a long, long time ago, pre-internet, not really pre-internet, but I was kind of at the tail end of what people call the golden era of the adult industry. DVD, I think was it DVD was kind of just starting. And so, yeah, it was just
Yeah.
a very different time. Do you remember your first DVD?
God, what was it? DVD, I think I do. And I think I tossed it out. It was when I was living in Chicago, dating my girlfriend at the time. I think we went to a store and we wound up getting it. It was some weird, it was like obviously some far out concepts, sci-fi. I want to say Nicole Sheridan.
Oh,
Based
okay.
off, I think Nicolette Sheridan was the real actor. But anyway, I vaguely do remember that. Yes, I do. But no, you're absolutely right, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask you.
Doesn't
You
it
came,
seem like forever
oh,
ago
dude,
though? And
I
so
mean,
much.
I know. Well, and it's so weird, and that's why I'm going to ask you. The game has changed so much. I mean, whatever. It's not a judgment or whatever. I just don't consume it as much anymore. But it's so everywhere. It's so ubiquitous. There
Now,
was,
yeah.
TNR video back in my hometown where it's like walls and walls of VHS. And like you said, your era ushered in this whole new game. It seemed like what was it, Caballero back in the day, and
Yeah.
Saker or
It
whatever.
did.
There you go. Well, even yeah. So, and you guys were kind of signed specifically to contracts to those guys,
Right.
and not to whatever. Jenna. I mean, I just don't want to bring up
No, go off. Go
any
off.
sensitive subjects. But like Jenna and even you, like they started almost producing, whatever Jameson.com or TaraPatrick.com. You guys start putting kind of the power in your hands, and the longer you're in the business, you're less beholden to these kind of probably shady producers, and you're able to produce your own content. So speak to how that game changed right when you were coming in.
And that's true. It was, like I said, I started in 1999 and I started with Playboy, which was just, it was an unbelievable way to enter the industry, such a glamorous company. I started in magazine work. There was definitely a slower transition. It kind of like reminded me, I one of my favorite interviews you did is Sam Tripoli, and it's like when Sam was saying comics do open mic night. Well, for a lot of adult stars, we start out doing magazines, and then we start out doing Skinamax, and then it goes to, I had done the Skinamax, I had done the HBO, and early on, I would say that first year, I got some really valuable advice. I lived next to an attorney, and she was a young attorney. She'd actually came over from Senegal. We lived in the same apartment complex. Late night conversations, bit of wine. I told her I was going into the adult industry. I had just posed for Playboy. I was thinking of going down this road. And she's like, listen, I'm going to give you some really great advice. You need to change your name. You need to trademark your name. Branding is going to become really important and essential to you. And I really, this is something that I preach to the up and coming girls and guys that come into the industry today, because as you said, I started my own production company. I used the money that I made on the road, feature dancing and stripping. I rolled that into producing my own films, owning them outright. And now that I've been retired for 14 years, all that money's mine. All of that content is mine. So kind of like you said, from 1999 till 2006, I just worked really hard producing my own content. You travel on the road, feature dancing, touring adult video stores, meeting your fans, doing conventions, just kind of really building up your name. I did some mainstream gigs, in between there as well, worked in video games, worked with, on a few mainstream movies. It's just kind of like, now I see the platforms have just gotten out of control. Back then it was 2 or 3 movie studios that you were either under contract to and you work for. And now it's like, it's just an explosion. It's just adult is everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I as a photographer and a voiceover, I mean, and even just other stuff I do, I'm very conscious of making sure I'm in control of my own content. And anymore, I mean, I don't, yeah, it absolutely is. Or, a musician owning his or her own masters. And it's just, there's so many sites right now out there. And like you said, what's that process of remaining diligent so some of your stuff isn't just out there? Do you have somebody, or do you kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of log and see what's going on to make sure your stuff's just not out there for free? Because I mean, I don't even know who the hell pays for stuff anymore, because it's so everywhere that's free. You can just punch in Tara Patrick or whatever name and you just festoon with hundreds of videos. How do you monitor that so you can make sure you keep your pockets full?
Well, one of the ways that this is always the double-edged sword of being an entertainer. It's, do you entrust a manager? Do you entrust someone to do this for you? Because that's a slippery slope as well.
Yes,
and I've been down that slope twice.
Yeah.
Very early on in my career, and I talk about it in Sinner Takes All. It's one of the first few chapters in my memoir. I talk about how I was in a terrible contract. I had signed on the dotted line. I had basically essentially kind of given this studio the ability to exploit my work, like in perpetuity throughout the universe, and my name.
And that has to be pretty common, not just in the adult film, but like music, and especially music, or especially if you're young. These guys are like, no, this is a standard deal. You're like, oh, okay.
You don't know. That's the thing. You're so young, well, I was 23 at the time, but that's the thing with a lot of these artists is, and I see this, and we see this now with different artists, right? We see this with YouTubers. We see this with young, hot
Yes.
people who are a hot commodity, who just want to be famous, who just want to get their
Yes.
name out there, who are promised, all this stuff. And then you meet someone who you trust, or you think you can trust, who you
Yeah.
think has your best interest, and they tell you, oh, sign here, it's just so we can get you paid weekly, and you don't read everything, and oh, you don't need an attorney, you don't need a lawyer, and you're just like, this is so awesome, and everybody's just really, you're also living this life,
Yeah.
you're making more money, or you're starting to make more money than you ever did at your first job or any job. And really, I think that especially in entertainment, it's so easy to fall into that trap of someone driving you around, someone doing your makeup and hair, a photographer wanting to shoot you. It's
Yeah.
just like everything's amazing. And so from that experience, I spent a solid year in litigation. It was horrible. It was awful for me mentally, spiritually, physically. And I remember on Christmas, funny enough, after we had, we settled the lawsuit and everything, I remember telling myself, okay, Tara, you're totally responsible for piloting your ship, like piloting your
Yes.
plane. Like, if you
Absolutely.
don't do this, you're totally not going to retire. I'm not trying to sound like a valley girl right now, but I was totally in this like mental space of like, I have to keep myself, I have to cover my butt,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Well, and
And
becoming your
so,
own advocate again. That's unfortunately a lot of times you don't know what you don't know, especially when you're younger. You almost have to go through that trial of fire to be like, okay, here's what not to do. So I mean, that's cool that you
right.
can even kind of give that advice to other actors, other artists, other people coming up. But I mean, I can only imagine that story has to be a little bit of everywhere. I mean, just Hollywood,
Well,
just producers, period. But I mean, I don't know. Not to. I'm sure there's
no,
lovely
it's
people in the
true.
adult industry that there's are willing to take advantage of a young, hot, whatever their enter name, man or woman. So you
Well,
got, like
that's
you said, you got to
why.
watch your cover your ass.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
That's why I don't want to say defensive, but so many outsiders, especially journalists, especially mainstream media, especially, there's always that porn is so degrading, and, porn is so, it takes advantage of girls. And listen, I have seen way more exploitive contracts in wrestling, athletes. I've seen musicians I've had friends sign away their publishing. This is their gold. I mean, and like you said, it's funny because I remember 3 months into this litigation, I can't for the life of me figure out, it was at a restaurant somewhere in Hollywood. And I was having my moment with my friend, oh, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did this. I'm never going to work in this town again. And, just having that whole my life is over moment. And there were two guys sitting at a table adjacent, and he was a fighter, and he said, no, he said, I was just like you. I signed a horrible, horrible contract with an unknown, a huge agency we won't say, but he said, and he took everything. He took all of my earnings. I made $2,000 a month. He was like, I didn't get any of my merch. He was basically essentially saying it's so easy to sign away your power when you're so focused on training. That's the other thing. As an artist, you're doing all the work. The manager's managing. So
Yeah.
you're not always privy to this stuff, right? Because you're doing.
Well, and you're giving oftentimes, power of attorney and just things that just, before you know it, you check your bank account and you're like, WTF, manager or agent. But again, it's so interesting. You brought up the whole YouTube thing. It's never really changed that whole notion. I mean, whatever, not getting it too deep in like selfies. Like everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be out there. Everybody, how many views do you got? How many clicks did you get or whatever? And that's so easily manipulated, that notion, almost that desperate desire to be the next XYZ. But you could
Mhm.
really lose everything. I mean, whether it's YouTube or like you said, fighters, that's a great point, man. Those fighters get screwed a lot. But again, I can only imagine how crazy that is out there and how frequent that is. But again, they're just manipulating people's just whatever desire to be famous.
Psyche. It doesn't really matter, I think, too, at what stage of the game you're in, because you can, for example, I've been offered a ton of money to come back many times. And the one thing that I've always said is, then what?
Right.
It's a huge paycheck. Then what? It doesn't feed my soul. And that's the number one question I always get asked is you could come back and kill it. You can come back and make this. You can come back and do that. So what? I don't need
Yeah.
any more guys to see my woo woo. I don't need any more guys to validate that I've got big tits. I mean, I'm not trying to be vulgar. I'm
No,
just
that's
saying
quite all
that
right.
at some point you grow, and at
Yes.
some point, as a human, I think that, when your whole life as an entertainer is sort of based on how many clicks you have, how many likes you get, how beautiful you are, how many comments you get, some people never get out of that trap. They don't want to get out of that trap. I know women who love still to this day to sit in that chair, and that's awesome. They still love to get made up. They still love the work, or maybe they don't, but it's really, it's easy. You can almost do it in your sleep. I've always felt like at some point, I think you have to grow. And now that I have a daughter who's 9, something that I told myself was parenting isn't something that you get to do over. You get one shot.
Hmm.
Those years go really fast. And I have a good relationship with both my parents. They were never tripped out that I went into the business. Like, that's a separate conversation. They're just like, you're our oldest. We're really proud of you. You've done really well for yourself. You've never been to jail. You don't do drugs, whatever. So they're just like, they're great. But my daughter, this time with her is so important to me, and it's so important to her. And I can't do it over.
Right. Well, now, yeah, I was just telling somebody the other day, like, we don't get to say whether we're good parents or not. That's not our call to make. It's our, obviously our children. That's really cool. I mean, that's refreshing too, because it sounds like you obviously have a good head on your shoulders. Because I can only imagine, Mike Tyson just did it. My boy Pat Miletich just did it. Like, one more fight. I got one more in me. You know what I mean? And
Right.
some people put themselves in that kind of financial situation where they have to do that. So, I mean,
True.
again, this, almost a cautionary tale, everybody. Like they say, make sure your paperwork is right. Don't let these people take advantage of you. Even, like I said, whether you're a movie star, whether you're whatever. I mean, down to these YouTube kids. I've seen it. These kids now playing video games and getting paid by these companies to do this and this and this because they got a million
Wow.
views or a million subscribers, and it could get dangerous. Like you said, it's a very slippery slope. Um, Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's also, I think, so important for we talk about athletes being a perfect example. You have a shelf life. How many times can you get hit? I look at some of these NFL players. I actually did a benefit. That's the one great thing I've always said about my job. I mean, I've done benefits with Boys to Men. I've worked with like so many different people on so many different scales, and that's probably the most incredible thing about being, having been in the industry, is I really appreciate. I have a lot of gratitude for my fans, and just for the ability to travel and take beautiful pictures and do what I love. I can remember doing this benefit for these NFL players, and it blew me away. It blew me away that so many of them had concussions, and they had these horrible injuries, and they were just destitute
Oh
financially.
yeah.
You get accustomed to living a certain lifestyle, and yeah, it was just, here we are, all entertainers, but just in different facets of entertainment. But there's so many similar stories.
Oh yeah.
And I remember one of them, he was just cracking me up because he's like, yeah, I'll bet I could do movies. I could do some of those positions because some of them are kind of like football. It was just hilarious. Like, I was just like, he's like, what about you? You got a few movies left in you? And I was like, no, 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 no. But, it's kind of like, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to leave on a high note. I didn't want to leave not looking my best. I look back on my body of work, and, I can honestly say there's nothing I regret. I was never forced to do anything I didn't want to do. I didn't do anything I didn't want to do. And I think that it's really important for your spiritual, as you move on and you pursue other things, whether it's school or whether it's just another part of, your career, that you end things in a way that you're okay with. That's
When
really important.
you had mentioned in some of our offline transmissions that you're in school, are you currently in school, and what are you in school for?
I am. I'm studying food science, food chemistry.
Mm.
Before, I actually had planned to work in a pharmacy here because I wanted to go into beauty chemistry, but There really isn't. I think, especially with the way and the direction the world is going now, I've always been fascinated by medicine, but more on the holistic side,
Yeah.
just using herbs, using oils. I'm a huge advocate. I'm a huge fan of natural medicine. My mother's Thai. She was born and raised in Thailand and came to America. Both my parents immigrated to the US actually, and I grew up very uh, just both. My mother was vegan and Thai, didn't speak a word of English. So that was hard because my friends were like, can't your mother, can't she just talk normal like the rest of us? Why does your house smell like fish? What are these strange oils on your counter? Did she bury eggs in the backyard? Oh,
Yeah,
I
we
was
get
like,
into the,
Mom,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
no, but I was, you're so ashamed. I was so ashamed, of her when I was young. And now I look back and I'm like, you put those tie wraps on, Mom, and you do those kung fu kicks on the front yard, but as a kid, I was like, Mom, please,
Oh, that's cool. As we get older, we appreciate that, and we talk about that all the time on the show. And that's so interesting that you're into, like, holistic food. Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. I believe it was Hippocrates who said that. So I mean, we've seen some of these documentaries now. Food Inc. and just we almost, like I was saying in the beginning, how we're just so toxified with so much around us, especially our food and our water and our air, but specifically our food. What are you finding out? I mean, is it as bad as we all hear that it is? I mean, just from the level of processing to
yeah,
everything being, pesticide sprayed and irradiated, or just so lack of nutritional value and
in
sustenance
the
in our
soil.
sustenance. Yes, absolutely, and especially our soil. So what are you finding out? Lay it on us.
No, well, that, and also just as we're breaking down, different ecosystems. I mean, just food chains, just food supply. And, I will say, going backwards and forwards, one of the reasons why I wanted to also live here in Europe was living here in northern Italy, where I live. Now, I'm about 5 hours from Rome. I'm 4 hours from Milan. I'm really deep in the north, deep in the
Nice.
Dolomites. Alps. And so it was really important for me to kind of live this slower pace of life. Something that was getting hard on me living in LA was everything I was having to do. Like, I had convinced myself that everything needed to be bio, gluten free, air free, oil free. Like, it was just nuts. Everything had to be from a particular market, wrapped a certain way, processed a certain way, because you just, like, one week you're supposed to eat kale, the next week you're supposed to do an enema with it. I mean, it was just like,
Right, right. Yeah.
you don't let your kids play with these kids because they'll get this. I mean, I think the last school I had looked into for my daughter, mind you, it was a private school, they wanted 50 different vaccines. I was like, she's 3 years old. I
I
mean,
know. I know.
this is bananas to me. So I felt like, okay, I'm going to cross the pond and I'm going to go live in a part of the world where, I can eat natural food. I mean, my daughter and I, every year we go foraging. My dad had me foraging for mushrooms when I was a kid, and herbs. I just like that I'm able to share where our food comes from, and just, we have planted a lot of peppers, a lot of herbs. These are things my parents did with me. And I just feel like it's such a nice way for her to learn about and appreciate food. I feel like food
Yeah.
is something that we really just take for granted.
And I think we're more, because of certain documentaries and certain research, we are beginning to understand. We're just more educated on food and what, it's how good it is or how bad it is. So I think that's really cool that you're, able to, it's kind of come full circle. We're kind of hard headed when we're younger, like, Mom, stop. But then as we get older, we just start understanding the wisdom. I mean, that, like I said, Hippocrates, that goes back, ancient Greece. So, I mean, we've known for a long time how valuable food is to our overall, homeostasis. But
Absolutely.
we make everything, $3 for a shitty burger and nasty fries and a milkshake. So it's just like, yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It's, and when we talk about this on the show, the things I mentioned, black oxygen, organics, chemical free body, just taking care of your body preemptively, pre-health care. Because
Yes.
if you wait for the bomb to go off to call in the bomb squad, then you got those Monday through Sunday pill containers, 50, 30 pills. And I mean, it's just absolutely insane. So I think that is hugely important, not to go off on a rant or a soapbox, but preemptive healthcare is really the way to go. So again, the information is out there now on how good and bad, food is, kale and all these other things. So get educated. Tim James, the CEO of Chemical Free Body, we know this. A lot of us know this information. It's about valuing ourself enough to make that choice to, all right, maybe I'll eat this bad thing every once in a while. But again, like everything else, it has to be a balance. So that's really cool, man. That's a cool story. And then your
Well, I
daughter's
think
going to be nice and healthy as well.
I hope so. Well, and I think it's a lot of information to take in. Like I'm having to study organic chemistry now, and I'm just like, okay, I barely remember this from high school. Like it's so much, I feel in a way, deciding to go back to school in your 40s it's hard. I mean, it's also, I don't want to say it's hard like in an impossible way, but it's really like it has to be what you want to do. There's
Yes.
days where, like you said, you have kids, you got to figure out a way to make money. You've got so much else on your plate, and then having to crack open books and study. And mind you, like we learned all this,
Yeah.
years ago. So some of it is a bit repetitive, but I do love living. A big part of this has to do with your community as well, because I have friends, like I said, living in LA, it just started to become impossible. I remember I would leave the house and I'd already have spent maybe $150 because you're drinking these organic juices, you're drinking this, you got to find the gluten-free coffee, or someone can't eat here. And it's just like, this is bananas. Let's just eat a banana.
Yeah.
A plain raw banana. It doesn't even have to be organic because it's got a peel on it. I mean, and then people are like, no, but those peels aren't organically sustained or fair trade. I mean, it's just so nuts.
Well, and that is kind of one of the downsides I hear about people who try to do like strictly organic. It's not cheap. It's definitely not
No.
cheap. But again, either pay for it now or pay for it later. So like, which one would you want to pay for? But yeah, I mean, that's really
People
cool
don't
though.
think that too. I think that when it comes to health, we kind of live, and I've been guilty of this at certain times. We live by, well, until something happens, I probably
Right.
shouldn't worry about it. I feel fine. I look fine. I think that society has obviously also gone through many phases of what the standards of beauty are. So there's a
For
lot
sure.
now going on, especially with models and influencers that are saying, eat 10 cheeseburgers. Thick is beautiful. Be thick. Well, okay, thick is beautiful, but we also don't want our cholesterol to be
Right. Yeah.
350. So, we maybe don't eat 10 cheeseburgers, but, let's, balance the good and bad fats. But I think too, everyone, we're starting to live in a society where it's very hard to educate without feeling defensive, without feeling overwhelmed. You're talking about the cell food, or, on a cellular level. And I can remember when I first moved to LA, I had a neighbor that was Greek, and I used to crack up because he used to have these drops. Then he was like, "It's cell food," and I was like, "What? How can you have cell food?" And he would go out there with scissors and clip dandelions, and he told me about the oregano oil, and I've been taking oregano oil for years. But yeah, it's like you're saying, it's things that are passed down to us, things that we remember, things that, like you said, what's the most important thing you can have? I think it's health. And
Without a doubt.
I always use Steve Jobs as an example, because I say this man was too sick to stand up and proudly unveil his iPhone. He was dying when he unveiled that. And
Yeah.
this man had how much money, and he just was not the picture of health. Your health has to be cherished, and it has to be the most important thing. I mean, not a bash on Steve Jobs, but
No.
basically saying, all the money, all of this, we're not immune to disease. And I think that's what this pandemic's also, or whatever the situation is that everyone wants to call it, has shown everybody. And that's what's made everybody fearful, is that we're not immune to this stuff. We need to really think about being present and healthy for our
Well, and when you
mind.
sit down with somebody like you or like a Tim James or somebody, and they like, say all these names and chemicals, there's just so much to it. It's almost overwhelming, where we just don't even get started. So we wind up just taking that path of least resistance, because it's like, I don't know what the hell you just said, and I'm just gonna go eat that cheeseburger. I mean, because there really is a lot. And when you start
It's a
going
lot
down
of
that rabbit
pressure.
hole about oregano oil, flaxseed oil, I mean, just name it. It's krill oil, just any of this. There's so much. I love listening to Joe Rogan and Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and she was just like talking, and like all of us, everybody's kind of what does he call them? Polymorphisms. We're all deficient in different minerals and stuff. But she was like vitamin D. I mean, she would just run down this list of how these very simple things are so essential for our
Yeah.
health, and it's really not. And that's why it's cool to make it less complicated for people, because it can get so very overwhelming. But again, it's a lot of it's just really kind of simple. Raw fruits and vegetables, drink a lot of water. I mean, it's not a puzzle. It's not splitting an atom, but we just choose to kind of overcomplicate it, because for whatever reason, we kind of make it, we tell ourselves it's so way more complicated than it is. So like I said, we just don't even start.
That's like parenting though, right? Because when
Right.
you have your first kid, you're like, they're like a glass baby egg. What are those really Fabergé? They're Fabergé eggs. The first
Yeah.
one's the Fabergé egg that you do everything. And then by the second, third kid, you're just like, you can go feed yourself. Um, but it's like we overthink so much. And I remember when I was pregnant, like everyone, what are you having? What are you having? I'm like, a child. But tell me, is it a boy or a girl? I need to know. And I'm like, it's my baby. I don't want to know. I don't want to find this out. But you need to go do it. You got to go do these 4D, 5D, get the head examined. And I'm just like, this is just nuts. I mean, I need to know what color diapers to buy you. Just bananas, all of the overthinking that goes
Yeah.
into.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt, we tend to do that. But again, things are sometimes way more simple than we kind of
Make
make
it.
them out to be. Well, it's cool. You clearly, and I guess we kind of alluded to this earlier. Whether you're an athlete, an actress, an artist, it's difficult. Fighters even like my boy Pat Miletich, he's having a better time at it. Obviously, he's an announcer and this and that, but making that transition for however long we're doing something, 5, 10, 15 years. Some of your contemporaries, specifically in the industry, and again, you kind of already alluded to it. Why is it some people are in that industry have, again, or any industry? Why do you think people have that inability or so difficult to turn the page? With athletes, I get it, man. Have you ever walked out to a stadium yelling your name and you're the champ or whatever, or the highs and lows or the highs of any industry where it's just hard to walk away from? In your circle or in just an extension kind of to the world, why do you think people have so much of a hard time, like you said, when you just change and it's not you anymore, but you might
Mhm.
have to for financial reasons or whatever? What do you see as the big hindrance for people turning the page?
Um, there's two huge hindrances, and funny enough, they're on two very opposite ends of the spectrum. And I'll start with the downer first, and it's the stigma. You are heavily stigmatized after working in this industry. It's very hard I can't go anywhere without people know who I am. I will never not be Tara Patrick. It's not like you can do hardcore porn and ever people just, everyone knows who you are, but they know you in a different way. When you're an athlete, it's like they don't see your wee wee, I guess, unless you've posed for Playgirl or you did an OnlyFans or something like that. But adult work is really stigmatized, and it's really hard, I think, for a lot of women especially to go into, let's say, an academic environment, even a normal environment. I could never, I don't know if I could work at Trader Joe's. I don't know if I'd want to work at Trader Joe's and have to go with Asian Hookers 5, best movie ever. I mean, I'll tell you something funny. I've been retired, okay, retired from shooting adult movies for 14 years now. That's a long time in entertainment, a long
Yeah.
time, but I still do very well in the Google searches. And I'm not saying this from any point of arrogance. I'm
No,
just saying
yeah, I
the
get you.
reality is that I know my name is still Googled. I still have a pay site. I do have an OnlyFans. None of this, I always told myself I could cut it off, but why? This is going to follow me around forever. I can keep profiting from it, no big deal. But the funny thing is, I now have fans that are younger and younger, and some of the things that I hear now are like, so when I'm like, we're going to say 18. Okay? Like,
Please.
we're not going to you're not going to tell me how old you were, because when they tell me, I'm just like, it's bananas. I mean, they're so young, some of them, when they get online. But anyway, the point being,
Yeah.
it's just something that never goes away. And so it's really hard to make that transition into a civvy or normal environment. Also, a lot of women, what guy is accepting of their ex being a Vivid girl or their ex being a Playmate, or you really just have to find. My husband's a defense attorney. He'd had no idea who I was. That was another thing for me, was living over here in Europe, living over here in Northern Italy. It's a very different culture. And I haven't felt if anything, if I get recognized, they're very family oriented here. They leave me alone with my family. They're just like, hey, but no one's ever bothered me. I've never had any issues. My husband was like, okay, whatever, I mean, he deals with criminals and hardcore
Right. This
stuff.
is
So for
nothing.
him, this was like, you're not shit. But I think the second one is, it's very hard to find something on par with this type of money. And the work really isn't that hard. I mean, for an uneducated girl who's just gotten out of high school at 18 to make $1,000 a day shooting pretty pictures or nude pictures or shooting, a scene, what else could she do? She'd have to have a
Yeah.
degree. She'd have to have, so it is. I think it's really hard for a lot of people in general to turn the page when they've been exposed to money and travel and lights and glamour. And I think the
Yeah.
constant validation of being told you're pretty, being told that you're hot, just all these things. I think it's really hard for people to let that go. Sorry if that was a
Well,
super
no,
long
that's all
one.
right. But again, to the evolution of the whole industry, it's kind of like, on set working for asshole producers, that could leave a really bad taste in your mouth. But now with technology being so ubiquitous, you literally can start producing your own stuff with an iPhone or having an OnlyFans or whatever. So you guys are so much more masters of your own destiny now, and the money is still there. I mean, I don't know how much it would differ from like old school or whatever, but it's almost if it ain't broke, don't break it kind of thing. And again, with you
Right.
guys being more masters of your own domain, like, why not do it? I mean, obviously you set your own boundaries or whatever, but I think technology and, these apps, it allows you to never even have to step foot on a set necessarily. And it's like, why would I, these guys pay me $1,000 to take pictures of my feet. Why would I not do this? You know?
Exactly. Well, or even interact, like you
Yeah.
said. Although I think that, one of the differences has been, and this can be argued, in any facet of the industry, is a lot of producers and some of the old school, photographers, people that I talk to, they always say beauty used to matter. You used to have talent. Now anyone can pick up an iPhone, they could shoot anything, upload it, and there you go. And this is true, like you said, photographers now pay to put their work into certain publications or pay to put them on certain platforms, where before it was like you had a production.
Yeah.
I can remember budgets. I can remember there was so much that went into actually shooting a model, getting credit for that work, going to a nice location. Now it's like we need 5 sets of 4 different girls. I mean, it's just like we need to
Well, and again, you
squeeze
guys,
a
I
lot
mean,
of juice.
with you guys, you being, so popular in the business, you guys kind of were like the last ones of kind of iconic status because now it's so oversaturated. I mean, it's just like it's hard really to be special in an ocean of feet pictures or whatever it is. So I mean,
There's only so
but
many feet you can.
I found that so weird. I worked somewhere and these girls, they were saying, I don't know the name of it. It's like it's basically kind of like an OnlyFans, but these guys are paying these girls like crazy money for their feet. And I thought they were joking at first, but then they like showed me their little account or whatever. I'm just like, that's crazy. People are
Only
freaks,
feet
man. I'm not
can.
judging it, but it's just like, damn, I thought I was a freak. People are like, nah, give me grease up your feet for me. It's like, what the fuck? All right.
Like you can
But
type with your feet and make extra.
it's so just weird now. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just getting old. Like, can we just see a nice, wholesome missionary position? Like, what's going on here? But going back
Right.
to what you were saying about, I remember it was I want to say it was maybe after porn or any one of these. Where are they now? Asia Carrera was a big fan of Asia Carrera growing up, and when she
Mm-hmm.
got out of the game, she married a gentleman and moved to, I think it was Utah, where it's like you're
Right.
really not going to get recognized because you're really in this church. You kind of insulate yourself. So I find that kind of interesting because, like you said, you guys are very popular, so it's very difficult to just go out into the world and not be like, hey, isn't that? So I mean, again, that's a part of that transition that I just find fascinating. Any sport, any genre, I think it's interesting how people can or cannot reinvent themselves. But again, like with the game changing so much, I mean, it's probably easier now, I think, to stay in it because, like I said, you're kind of in the driver's seat more than before.
And for some, I think it's all they know. I mean, I think that when you've been groomed and you've been in an industry for so long, it might be, it's scary. It's scary to change. I think that all of us, myself, when you take a leap of faith, like you said, starting this podcast, you can talk yourself out of anything. You could say, no, there's too many. I don't want to do this. Someone's going to think my voice is annoying. This is dumb. Forget it. Scrap it. And then a month later, you're like, no, this is what I want to do. This is my ticket into, it was like me going back to school. I was like, no, you're going to get a migraine every night. Like I made up all these random, I won't have dinner done in time. I don't know. I mean, it's fear. It's like if fear is this cock blocker. And
Yeah.
I think the number one thing, a lot of my fans would ask me too. They're like, okay, you're done with, porn. Bye bye. But we want feet pics. No, I'm just kidding. But they would be like, why Italy? Why did you just pack up and move to another part of the world? And I tell them, because I wanted change. I wanted growth. I wanted a different phase in life. I mean, of course I could have stayed in LA. I mean, I have family, I had friends. It's not like it wasn't working, but I wasn't growing. and I wanted my daughter to grow as well. And I think that, there comes a point there, it's not for everybody. Like, for example, my sister has never left her town. She's been married 20 years. She's a grandmother at 40. She has 3 kids. She has the deepest roots in her little town, and she has no desire to see anywhere else in the world. And
Absolutely.
that's fine too.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of has their path and where they want to go. And then she gets annoyed when people go, "Are you Tara Patrick's sister?" But, for me, I think that challenging myself, having to learn another language, having to be, in another part of the world has only been invaluable to me. And it's made me as a human, as a person, so much more empathetic and compassionate, open. I live in another part of the world, so rich in history, everything from art to music. It's just incredible. It's just been a really incredible experience. And I feel grateful for that. And so I will never denounce, see, it sounds like the Pope's ringing the bell now. That's the other thing about this country, very Catholic. Italy's a very deep in lots of religion, lots of tradition. But it's just been a very different journey for me the last 5 years. And I feel like as a person, I'm so grateful for the growth. And I am a little, I don't want to say scared. I'm comfortable, but I think that when you choose to just kind of go into a different field and a different job, there's some moments.
When, like you said, everyone has their path in life, and everyone can, feel free to take your lane. But in my opinion, like travel, just growth, evolution is just, I think, key to just human development. If you want to just, like your sister, if she's staying home, and I wouldn't say she's stagnating because that's her choice, but I think for a lot of people, change is the immutable law of the universe. So you got to be able to embrace that. And that's almost, I don't know if you were in my brain when I was starting my podcast, because I was telling people, I'm like, in the sea of podcasts, there's even more now. People were like, "Oh, who do you think you are, Joe Rogan? Oh, what are you trying to be the next Joe Rogan?" And I'm like, man, I want my first guest to be Pat Miletich, because I'm a huge MMA fan, obviously. And we're from the same hometown. And he was the most gracious person in the world. We wound up having him on like 3 or 4 times. But once I started getting in my stride, I had him on one time and he's like, "Jeff, man, you want to do this conspiracy podcast with me?" And I'm like, "You're fucking with me." For weeks, I'm like, "Dude, you're fucking with me, dude. Just come on, stop." And we started the Conspiracy Farm. And that's been 4 or 5 years, millions of listeners, over 100 countries. But again, I had to make that leap of not listening. A lot of us do that, man. Even if it's not our friends or family, that voice in our head, man, you can't do that shit. Or like you said, you're not going to be able to have dinner, right? Just whatever that voice is telling you to not do whatever, oftentimes we follow it. And I wouldn't say I have to learn the hard way, but I learned, not listening to that voice and taking that leap. It's absolutely changed the whole direction of my life. It's just been crazy, but without, I hate to sound Tony Robbins, I'm going to steal a quote. It's in the moment of decision where your destiny is formed. And again, if you just stay fearful and never embrace that change that's coming for you, or even staying in the rearview mirror and not being able to see the beautiful shit right in front of you, it happens to a lot of us. But I think that's really cool that, you didn't let that fear paralyze you, because I think a lot of us do that, unfortunately.
Well, and this is what I really try to impart on my colleagues and to other women in the industry. This has been really important for me because I know firsthand, obviously, and so many women and men, that, like you said, after porn ends, what is there? What do you do? And it's even as simple as, wow, you got married and that's so great. And, because I think that a lot of people simply can't wrap their head around, having spent time in the sex industry. They just don't understand it, whether you're a stripper, because the umbrella is very big. You could have just stopped and posed as a playmate. You could do porn. You could do an OnlyFans. I think that, as I said, it's so easy to stigmatize people in our industry because so many people can't wrap their head around it. They're like, "What do you mean you did that and there were no feelings and it was fun and you made money? How does that work? Maybe I could do that." No, you and your husband cannot do that. It's just, it is like you said, moving to a small Mormon town, moving to, a country. Some people really fall off the radar. They raise their kids, they live, happy lives. And I think that for some people, there's just really always that fear of, there was a perfect example of an actor. I think he was on the Cosby Show. I'm not sure, but he took a job at Trader Joe's.
Yeah. Elvin. I forget Jeffrey Owens. I think is his name.
And they were making articles like, oh, times must be tough at your Trader Joe's. And I'm thinking, this guy's got a job. Like,
Right.
why do that to him? Who cares? Maybe he doesn't want to be in entertainment. Why even like put that on him? You know what I mean? But as you know, like you're saying, there's so much that we put on ourselves. And so I think that sometimes we stay, or we stay where we think we know, or where we're comfortable, just to kind of not have to deal,
or what was it? The pursuit of happiness, Will Smith telling his kid, some paraphrasing, but some people who are afraid to do shit tell you can't do it. They project their fears on you. And again, that's another thing. Yeah. And that's another thing. We're like, well, maybe they're right. And it's so unfortunate. You're right. I do remember that, the trader Jeffrey Owens. And it's so sad. We literally are a civilization that like tramples people for Black Friday sales in high school or junior high. My daughter's at they're clowning people for having an Android, not an iPhone. It's like, what the fuck? What is going on right now? But we could easily be petty. But again, transcend, man. We have to like transcend these environments that keep us back. If you got to leave some family members and some friends to embrace your dream and take it to the next level, that doesn't mean you don't love them or you're not better than them. You're just moving on, man. You're just changing, embracing change. So that's awesome. Really refreshing to hear, and I'm really happy for you and glad you're in school. I was gonna keep you a half hour, and here I am keeping you almost an hour.
Oh, it's great. I'm glad we got a chance to talk. And
no, absolutely.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time. Any like social networking, where can we find you? I know you're a little bit of everywhere out there. Where can we track down what you're up to?
So my official website for 20 years has been tarapatrick.com, and I write a blog on there. I have my archive of content on there, everything new, old, and in between. I write on there, and every time I do a podcast or anytime I do an appearance, it's on tarapatrick.com as well. And yeah, thank you. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for the fans. I enjoy meeting new fans. It's hard. I've spent the last few years actually just doing appearances. Like I said, I did a gig with Boys to Men in Japan, and I've done, just all kinds of gigs. I like doing gigs, and it's fun to just be with I love Comic-Con. I've done Comic-Con. I did it in Mexico City last year. So I'm really grateful for the travel and all the experiences. And that's something that I hope I'm hoping that next year we get to get back on the road and travel, because I enjoy that so much. I enjoy meeting people and just being in different, like we said, just being in different environments and sharing stories, and it's fun.
Well, Tara Patrick, it's been awesome. You're a good people. So I'm very glad we were able to take this time. And obviously we were welcome back anytime. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the great and powerful and mighty Tara Patrick here on It's Me speaking to you. Peace and so much live, guys. Stay tuned. As you know, there will always be more. Peace.
I feel like Baby Yoda.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tara. I appreciate it.
Just let me know when it comes out, or to tweet, or.
Yeah, I'll have this up. I mean, it doesn't take long. That's why, whatever, any mistakes, quote unquote mistakes, I just let it ride. Just intro and outro and we're done. So I'll just edit it soon and I'll have it up.
Okay. Yay.
All right, Tara. Have a great night. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Take care.